break down the truth, yeah, forget the rest. You oppose the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity where they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lies. Steampunk Kelly with the center clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts glow.
Hello, everybody. I hope your day is going wonderful. I know it's a Monday, and Mondays, generally speaking, are not wonderful. Just ask Garfield. That made me. My cat is over there taking a nap, but this one's not orange. My orange one passed away last year. He was a good boy. Now I have a different good boy. But anyway, hope you're had a good weekend. Boy, it's been quite an eventful day, news-wise. There is the Supreme Court came out with some new decisions today. Two of which Trump liked, or one of which Trump liked, and two of which Trump didn't like. And one of the things I wanted to discuss here is that two of these decisions, even according to other members of the Supreme Court, were kind of weird in that they weren't consistent. These two decisions were both related to whether or not the president can fire members of what's the word I'm looking? What is the my brain? Sometimes my brain just does not grasp words. Independent agencies. That's it. Can the president of the United States fires people that are members of independent agencies on a whim? Now, it's always been accepted that if there is, like cause. Like if somebody is caught like taking bribes and the president of the United States says, no, you're fired, or we don't need people taking bribes here. That's one thing. It's quite another thing to fire somebody because they're not enacting your policy, because that is what makes it independent. If people have to do what you say, by definition, it's not independent. And if you can fire people for not doing what you say, then it is no longer independent. And there were two hearings or two decisions today, one involving Slaughter and one involving Lisa Cook. Lisa Cook is on the FDA, or is on the Slaughter is FDA. Lisa Cook is on the Fed. And the difference is arbitrary. But they said, okay, you can fire people on any independent agency except for the Fed. So gonna just look at some comments here, and then we'll come back to that. Hi, Harry. How you doing, buddy? I'm pretty sure with almost every bill that sets up an independent agency, it says that the president can fire them in exceptional circumstances or when gross misconduct occurs. And that's right. That's one of the things that they pointed out in the dissent is like the legislation actually says this here. So you're telling Congress that there's no way they can regulate this. And what happens then is if you don't have an independent agency that is truly independent of the presidential politics of things, then you don't have consistency. You don't have continuity between administrations of any sort. And then that in turn can make investments less likely, because you could be like, I right now, this is a permissive government to allow me to invest this money to do this thing. But in 2 years, the president could change. All of this could change. All of my, money that I invested in doing this thing is now worthless because I can't do it anymore. And I just wasted all of that money. So it's actually counterproductive to capitalism, as much as Republicans are doing this in the interest of capitalism. Like, stability is a big benefit to capitalism. The chaos is not. And that's what Donald Trump is doing right now. That is what the Supreme Court is endorsing. And they drew a line in the sand and they said, well, the Fed is just too big. Like if the president can just hire and fire Fed board members willy-nilly, then it's going to cause a worldwide recession. And so we can't do that. And, and then everything else, they were like, oh, about the history and stuff. But the history is consistent with the other departments too. It is just the decision that it's okay to fire Lisa Cook or to fire Slaughter is just irresponsible. It's irresponsible. This Supreme Court will go down as the worst Supreme Court in modern history. We haven't seen decisions this bad since like Plessy versus Ferguson or Dred Scott. Like these are historically horrible decisions that are not rooted in law. They're not rooted in the Constitution. They're rooted in a conservative opinion that will bend the law to fit their opinion and ignore the law when it doesn't. And that's what happened then. And that is what is happening now. This is a terrible Supreme Court. It is like they ought to just start calling it the unsupreme court, because it's definitely not supreme. If they just want to fire them, I think they can, but they need congressional approval to do so. Right. And it's because you need stability, and it's in the legislation. That's the thing. The Republicans forever were sitting there talking about legislating from the bench. Well, that's what this is. Where's all the complaints from all these, textual, literalists and stuff like that? The only comment of this seriousness you'd ever read around here, humanity, is the discovery of the century. I have no idea what you're talking about. Hello from Phoenix, Arizona. Hey, how you doing, Deb? Hope you had a great weekend. Did you eat any yummy food? I did. Politicians only follow the law when it fits their agenda. Depends on which politicians you're talking about. I don't like the idea of just generalizing all politicians. I think that there are honest and good politicians. I also think there are dishonest and terrible politicians. I'm not going to, it's called a generalization fallacy. I'm not going to sweep all politicians under the rug. There are some with integrity, and there are some with none. Rogue Supreme Court. Absolutely rogue. It is indifferent to the Constitution and the law at this point. It's not even trying to pretend. And these two decisions delivered 5 minutes apart, which are contradictory to one another, to the point where even the dissent in the decisions, even the people, there were I think 2 justices that were in the at least Barrett. I think maybe it was just Barrett that was among the conservative justices who was consistent in both cases. And even she was pointing out, I truly do not understand how you can say this one is okay and that one's not. They're either both okay or they're both not. And she was the deciding vote. And I think she's got a point. I think it's one that they should answer. I don't understand why why would you want a Supreme Court appointed by politicians? It is almost certainly going to make it a political fanfare. Well, because it's in the Constitution and it's been that way the 250 years of our history, and we need to like basically restructure the entire government in order to do it. That's why. This is not like a realistic discussion about having another way right now. We basically have to change our entire system of government on the fly. I don't think that's going to happen. I honestly believe that America would do very well if you just threw out your current constitution and rewrote it. Some people are worried that that's what conservatives want to do, because it's not necessarily true that if we rewrote it, it's going to be better. I think a lot of Republicans think that could rewrite it and make it worse. And, like put, prenatal rights as a human citizen in there and stuff like that. Apparently we want to go back to the James Garfield type days. Lisa Cook should have worked at Fox News. Yeah, it would seem like that. They just want to push right-wing billionaires agendas, because that is who placed them there, and that is what they are there to be doing. They're just earning their money. You get like Leo and Teal and these clowns that bought the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is supposed to represent the United States of America, not the billionaires in the United States of America. Yeah, but there are, but the terrible politicians overpower the good ones like 100 to 1, in case you couldn't tell that was an exaggeration. Yeah. And I think that, we definitely need to reform politics to clean it up. I mean, like to, as Trump would say, drain the swamp. And I don't think filling it with the swampiest swamp monsters in the history of swamps is the way to do that. I think, when you talk about politicians that I think are good, I think James Tallarico is a perfect example. And he's said that one of his first priorities, or his top priority, is to overturn Citizens United. And I think that is a really good example of one thing we can do to drain the corruption out of politics. It wouldn't, certainly, it's only the beginning. There is a lot more than that, but that is certainly a beginning. How do you think that those billionaires were able to buy a Supreme Court? It's by buying the Senate that approved them and the president that appointed them. So definitely, the way that everything is done right now, and people are like, well, billionaires have freedom of speech too. And I think that's true. I think that Peter Thiel should have no more or less right to speech than I do. But you can't give one man a microphone and a 5,000 watt amplifier and 500 speakers, and then everybody else can whisper. That is not the same thing. That is not equal rights. That is giving somebody a right over everybody else. If only one person is heard, does it matter what everyone else is saying? And, we're not talking literally about actual speech, but when you're talking about money in politics, effectively you are. Even if you just pump in so much money into political advertising that it just drowns out the whole conversation, it's still effective. It is. I always find it interesting that after Trump won, the number one thing that was Googled is how do tariffs work? Like people didn't even know how tariffs worked that voted for Trump. And then they're like, oh, wait, you mean other countries don't pay for them? I still have MAGAs that come on this show and insist that other countries pay for tariffs. And they walk around in circles talking and talking and talking and just saying stupid things and not realizing that all of that mumbo jumbo nonsense is mumbo jumbo nonsense. Trump lost. Hey, Brett, how you doing this morning or this afternoon? Trump lost his last appeal against E. Jean Carroll. He owes $83 million. His last appeal or his first? Okay, to be clear, he had the Supreme Court refused to hear his appeal on his first case. So this is not the $83 million one. This is like the $5 million one. So that's gone. I think it increases the likelihood that they're not going to listen to the other one. But right now, that's the only one that they've ruled on. And they didn't really rule on it. They just refused to hear it. But he's out of appeals on that. And I think what's important there is that's the one that found that he was liable for sexual assault. And that is final. There's no going back about that. They can complain and whine and cry and throw all their little hissy tantrums that they want and behave like, toddlers who can't get their lollipops. But it doesn't change the fact Donald Trump is an adjudicated rapist. And that is it. Donald Trump will always be an adjudicated rapist. And that might be because he sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll, at least according to the jury that heard all of the evidence. I still can't believe we actually made someone an ambassador simply because you used to be the president's son's ex-girlfriend. Oh, is Guthrie an ambassador? I didn't even. I think I remember that vaguely, but I mean, there's always been, because my dad was a diplomat and like a career diplomat, so I do have some firsthand experience in that world. And there are basically two kinds of ambassadors. There's your career ambassadors, and then there's your appointed ambassadors. Appointed ambassadors tend to get slots like England or France or, places that people actually want to go. Career ambassadors get sent to places like Liberia where nobody wants to go. And in places that are like political appointments, there usually is somebody else there that's an ambassador rank. Like an ambassador in the State Department is like equivalent to a general in the military. And it's an actual rank. And there's different levels of ambassadors. But there will usually be the second highest person at an embassy is called the DCM, or the Deputy Chief of Missions. And the DCM is usually an ambassador rank in those places. And they actually help, the functions of the embassy in that country, while the ambassador goes around and gallivants and goes to parties and stuff. I think one of the concerns I have is, while it's always, these political appointments have always been like political favors and stuff like that, none of them ever pretended like they actually knew what they were doing and were there to, be the ambassador. Now it's like they're there to do Donald Trump's bidding, and no matter whether that's good policy or bad policy, no matter how it affects our relationship with that country, which ostensibly that's what an ambassador is there supposed to do, right? To help our relationship with that country. Have they not read the Humphreys executor versus United States ruling? I haven't. I don't know what it is, but I am assuming they did and then just ignored it. I think that must be based on the Humphreys part of it, like going back to the 20s-ish. They are judges and you are not. Yes, they are judges and I am not. So what? That doesn't mean I'm right or they're right and I'm wrong. Doesn't mean that the Constitution changed. I mean, why? This is like a weird take, Keith. You never disagreed with the Supreme Court decision? Did you ever? I'm assuming that you agree. Do you agree with Dobbs, or do you agree with Roe versus Wade? Because judges made both of those decisions. Judges made the decision in Plessy versus Ferguson. Do you know what that is? Like, this is just a silly comment. This is an actual fallacy. It's an argument from authority. Like, they have authority, therefore they're right. Read a book, Keith. Hell, even finding a decent politician is hard. It is harder than it should be. And I think, like, we can jump into defending, like, Eric Swalwell, a great example of a bad politician that's a Democrat, or Bob Menendez, who is appropriately abiding his time, staring at steel bars right now. Like, I think, when he was being prosecuted, you didn't have Democrats throwing hissy fits about it. It was a Democrat that was in president when Bob Menendez was being prosecuted. But Donald Trump pardoned the Republican guy that was Lopez or whatever his name is, that was found guilty of corruption. So I think there's parties from both sides, or people from both sides, but at least the Democrats in general are willing to, like, point out when their own are corrupt. Everywhere bad, whatever should be bad, and good, whatever should be good. The bad cannot or mess with the good. Teach people to eat food, not poop. Try that. Okay. I personally don't understand the corporate personhood ruling, because if corporations have personhood, they can't. Why can't the government go in and say, if you break this regulation, you can't break this, or we can seize your entire company and shut it down? Or if corporations are persons, Harry, in America, if a corporation breaks the law, they can't go to prison for it. So you have, like, the people that with the whole opioid, the starts with an R. Anyway, the family responsible for that's in Chicago. They should have gone to prison, every single one of them that participated in that. They're responsible for literally the deaths of tens of thousands of people. And they had to pay a fine that they don't even notice, didn't even affect their lifestyle. But they're people when it comes to being able to, buy politicians, but they're not people when they're committing crimes. And the honest truth is that if the government tried to do that now under the current Supreme Court, they would throw it out as violation of private property in a heartbeat. I'm really wondering what the Supreme Court is going to do with the birthright citizenship, because the very simple legal ruling, the legal ruling on this is so simple and so cut and dry. It says exactly what the 14th Amendment says it says. If you're born here, you're a citizen. The fact that the Supreme Court even heard the case makes me afraid that they're going to just go against the actual text of the Constitution, even though they're supposed to be textualists. And they're going to just, like, outlaw a bunch of actual human beings that are Americans. The I can guarantee freedom of speech, just not freedom after speech agenda has got to be the most bull poop thing ever. It's literally just to fuel somebody's ego. I like that utterance. Not freedom of speech, but not freedom after speech. I just brought a $135,000 watt electric. Oh, a 135. I was going to say, man, that's a big motor. A $135 3,000-watt electric motor from mainland China. It cost me $154 in tariffs. And America does not make them and won't for decades. And not everything, like a lot. Did you know that? I mean, Brett knows this, but everybody else. Did you know that we've actually lost manufacturing jobs since tariffs were launched? We're actually have fewer people that work in manufacturing than we did before. So how is these tariffs producing all these manufacturing jobs it was supposed to produce? Speaking of tariffs, how are we supposed to pay back refunds? Oh yes, and that's the other thing, is they were struck down, and then who got the money back? The companies that paid for them. You know who didn't get the money back? The people that had to pay higher prices. And they're not lowering prices on those things that they raised the prices on either. The people that are making bank, and then here's the other thing about this, and this doesn't get a lot of discussion. You have basically two types of companies in America. I don't mean to oversimplify, but you have companies that have a lot of money, and you have companies that don't have a lot of money. And the companies that don't have a lot of money, they're buying their inventory as they go along. Right? They don't have enough capital that they can stockpile. But the super wealthy corporations like Walmart have money that they can stockpile stuff. And so what they can do is they buy a bunch of stuff before the tariffs go into effect, right? So that they can kind of wait out the tariff. Then once the tariffs go in, all the companies that weren't able to stockpile, they have to pay more prices. They have to pay more to get their product out on the market. And some of them had to change who their things were, or who they're buying from. The supply chains got all messed up. And then you could change who your supply chain is, right? Make a contract with them, and then Donald Trump decides that the president of another country was mean to him, and so he's going to add another 20% tariff onto that. And so then your business got destroyed because somebody didn't like Donald Trump. And so Walmart doesn't have to worry about all that. They've got all their inventory backed up. And then their competitors have to raise their price. So then Walmart can still raise their price. Doesn't matter if they didn't have to pay extra. The market price went up. They can raise their price and just make more money off of it. And then once the tariffs get struck down, do they lower the price again? No. And their competition has been run out of business because they couldn't afford the tariffs. So guess who benefited from the tariffs? The billionaires. As with everything to do with Trump, the only one that benefits are the people that don't need any more money. I don't even understand how I paid more in tariff than the price of the item. Right. They must have been included shipping or something. The breakdown of the bill was terrible. It's a good point. I didn't process that all the way through, but I ran into, it could be like a cumulative tariff because, anyway, I have no idea. Maybe they have no idea, and that's why they couldn't give you a good receipt. I ran into someone online today who sings Doge actually saved money. Even Elon says it was a fail. Doge, yeah, it didn't. It just didn't. And it a lot of people are dead. And I don't mean like a couple of people or 100 people or 1,000 people or 10,000 people or 100,000 people. Like millions of people are literally dead around the world because of Doge. But Elon Musk is a trillionaire. I need smaller fingers. That is one thing Donald Trump has never said. Okay. Hello. They said on YouTube they had to cancel China putting EMPs in outer space, fake news, if they had to work They would have used it by now. I have no idea what that means. I don't even know what EMPs are. Sorry, Jason, if you want to clarify. Kimberly, yeah, ex-girlfriend. The best is yet to come. Okay. Keith Rowell gets a traffic ticket and doesn't fight it, even if he knows he's right. Right. Because the judge said so. What's the point of, if the judge says something, then why is Donald Trump appealing what a judge said, right? They are the judge, so they must be right. Last time Lopez just sounds like someone Trump would deport for his amusement. Like, yeah, and the guy is an immigrant. I can't. Is it Lopez? I'm trying to think of his name. Santos. I'm sorry, different Spanish name. The guy that George Santos, that was like just lying about everything. Charles Kushner, dad of Trump's son-in-law, U.S. ambassador to France, and pardoned by Donald Trump. That's a joke. Herschel Walker, friend of president and football player, U.S. ambassador to the Bahamas. You forgot to mention that Herschel Walker is also a former member of the a former police officer. He's got a badge and everything. I bet you the Supreme Court will delay this decision until after the midterm elections. I will say that, political appointments of ambassadors have always been a thing. Like, that's not a new thing. That's going back. I mean, heck, before the country. That's been like that every country does that. Everybody has always done that. But in terms of, like, to this degree, I don't think it's been. I think it is worse. The decision of birthright citizen. The decision on birthright citizenship is a joke. I agree. I think that even hearing the case gives it more gravitas than it deserves. Supreme Court decisions for the term come before the end of June. I think Citizens United is supposed to be released tomorrow. I think that's the only one left. Walter, on our earlier question, the Supreme Court never actually ruled on how much is owed to in tariffs and how it is supposed to be paid back. Yeah. And this is like, so Brett Kavanaugh, who likes beer like Brett Wood biking does, but maybe a little more. I'm just joking because Brett had to go make a beer run in Friday's show. But anyway, he made this argument. How are we supposed to figure all of that out? And it's like, he was also voted to allow the tariffs to continue in spite of the fact that everybody was asking him that. And then he gets to this point and he's like, well, we don't know how to do that. And it's like, well, then maybe you shouldn't have allowed the tariffs to continue, Brett. Go have another keg. They throw it back to the lower courts to approve each individual claim, which they think sums to something like $175 billion. After each approval of a claim, they have to pay it back within 90 days. Also, every time you order something from overseas now, you have to worry if Trump is going to start some poop that will get your products stuck on the other side of the planet for months. This government, the way that Donald Trump is running, it's terrible for the economy. And these decisions, we've got some more people on now. These decisions by the Supreme Court, this decision that allows the president of the United States to just, fire anybody he wants in these executive agencies because they don't like him, that, regardless of what you think about what he's doing or not, this is a thing that, if you are a capitalist, if you are a free market capitalist, you should be very concerned. Because what happens now is things are become a roller coaster. And so one presidency is all great, and then the next presidency is all regulated, and then the other one is not regulated. So let's say right now you're a capitalist and you want to invest a bunch of money. You got an idea for a new kind of combustion engine, right? That, you got this car and it's like, it is a massive gas consumer, but boy, is it cool, right? And it's like, you didn't want to do this under Biden because, he's all about this clean energy nonsense. And so then Trump comes along, deregulates everything. You're like, yeah. But then the next president can come along and they're, AOC, President Ocasio-Cortez, she's like, no, we all got to be like California. And so she just replaces the entire board and changes everything. And so all that money you invested into your super combustible engines is just wasted. Your entire business plan gets wiped out by a presidential election. And this happens every 4 years. Every time there's a new president, people have their businesses destroyed or elevated. And that kind of inconsistency is bad for an economy. Not having the security means people aren't going to invest money the same way they would. Who wants to invest money in a business so that as soon as it gets off the ground, it's going to be ruined by an agency based on who the president is? It's terrible. They ruled the tariffs were illegal, but they never decided on the amount and how this is to be paid. They threw it back for the lower courts to do that. That was funny. Are you, Kathy? Are you referring to my tiny fingers joke about Donald Trump? I was pretty proud of that one. I'm going to assume that's the one you were talking about. And also, Kathy, welcome from Twitter. We don't get as many comments from Twitter. Tariffs may be ruled illegal, but nothing has changed on websites. I used to get free shipping. Now I'm guaranteed to pay at least the price of the item, if not more. The $800 figure forgiveness for whatever is called is ignored. Is gone. Oh, wow. I don't even know about all that. I don't have enough money to spend $800 on Twitter orders or on Amazon orders. The judge is very cool. I will listen. What judge is very cool? What do you mean you will listen to them? Which one? Where is our tariff refund check? And, the people that ended up spending all that extra money, they're never going to see a dime of it again. And the prices are never going to come down. Anybody that voted for Trump is a fool. But usually when a country makes a political appointment of an ambassador, it's for a reason like that person has good relations with the country or that person is friends with the country's president. And no, a lot of times it's just because they're good friends with the president. I mean, trust me, I've met some of them. But they weren't. They tend to be apolitical appointments. They're not partisan. They're just like rewards for, political contributions or something. And then you just go, you get appointed to France, you go, you eat nice food, you go and you regale other people and they regale you and you have a nice time and then you come home. You're not actually engaged in actual policy. You're just, get to be an ambassador or something like that. It's never just, well, like I've son-in-law's David, here's a new job, so I thought I might have him ambassador to France. Yes, that's true. Somewhere next to it's right next to our Doge checks, and we get those right after Donald Trump announces his new healthcare plan, which will come 2 weeks after the peace deal with Iran. I love beer. Okay, I was like, I hope Brett, I think you have a sense of humor, so I was like, I hope he doesn't get offended. Did you see the Trump passports? Oh, yes. Thank you for bringing up the Trump passports. It says, welcome, but be good. Have you guys seen this? Donald Trump's passports say welcome, but be good. Does he know how passports work? I mean, if he had visas that said welcome but be good, I could understand that. But he has passports that say welcome, but be good. You only use your passport if you're leaving the country or coming back. I so much of what Donald Trump does is like, do you remember the scene in Animal House? If you've ever watched Animal House and they're stoned and they're like, oh wow, like if I had a universe in my thumbnail, like, could you ever think there could be a whole universe in your thumbnail? And then somebody's like, yeah, and then somebody could be looking at the stars at the universe that's in your thumbnail, and they're thinking, wow, imagine if there's a universe in that thumbnail. And, anyway, this kind of stoned thinking is like a lot of Donald Trump's policies. So he probably had this idea, and he doesn't do drugs, but allegedly. But that's what I mean. Like, if at least if he were stoned, he'd have an excuse for it. Welcome, be good. That's a line that, yeah, Brett said the same thing before I did. It should be on visas, not passports. He's about as bright as a burnt out Christmas bulb. Guess that's all we need now is passport with his crummy. Oh, and then the passport, the pictures, there's like this super sized, like almost poster sized image of Donald Trump, and then like all the founding fathers are in this little tiny image on the next page. Like he's making him, and he's like standing on the table like some sort of arbiter of reality. It's just, I would say imagine if Biden or Obama had done it, but Obama or Biden never would have done something like this. Neither would Bush or Reagan or anybody else in the history of the country. Like like even if if the Democrats did this, like if any other human being did it, nobody else would. It's so insane. So Harry's getting a laugh out of the passport situation. I'm going to get mine renewed July. And I need to get a new one because I may not know if I want to stick around here for 2 more years. So I just maybe he's putting his big ugly face on passports to keep Democrats from wanting to leave, because then they have to order passports. Or maybe it's like a part of this whole thing with the SAVE Act where you need a passport, birth certificate to vote. So then if you get like nobody will get a passport and they won't vote. By the way, that's something else I wanted to talk about, is this whole SAVE Act situation. There's this kind of viral thing going around about if showing your ID to vote is so bad, why do you have to show your ID to go to the Obama presidential library? And you don't have to go show your ID to go to the Obama presidential library. If you show your ID and you're from Illinois, you can get in at a discounter for free, but that's it. You don't need, even if you're from Illinois, you don't need to show your ID to get in. You just have to pay regular price. And also, it's not a felony to say that you're from Illinois when you're not. You don't go to jail if you lie about it. But this SAVE Act, they have consistently tried. Mike Johnson is sitting there. Oh, you just have to prove you're a citizen and show that show your ID when you vote. Well, that's not just what it does. Number one, saying you just have to prove you're a citizen assumes everybody has proof that they're a citizen that they can show based on the criteria to prove you're a citizen, right? And there's only they provide certain ways Like there's certain things that you can show to prove you're a citizen. Like you can have a passport. There's certain kinds of driver's licenses, and not your real ID license. Your real ID does not count. I see a lot of Republicans that even like will sit there and they will call me, accuse me of gaslighting for saying this and stuff. Look at the damn bill. There are some driver's licenses which you have the option of getting that you have to pay extra for, that actually say you're a citizen on them. And you can only get them in 5 states. You can't get them everywhere. Most states you can't get them. Most people don't even have this kind of driver's license on the table. But there are a few states where you can get a driver's license that says you're a citizen, and that one is allowed. But most people, their driver's license doesn't allow them to do that. Okay? So that's one thing, is it's just a lie that, you know, you all you have to do is just show your driver's license. You have to show one of these specific IDs, your passport, birth certificate, and then for there are certain kinds of driver's license, certain types of military ID that will show you're a citizen. But even all the military IDs don't show you're a citizen, because you don't even need to be a citizen to serve in the military, by the way. And to get those other ones, you need a birth certificate. So the bottom line is, in order to vote, you have to have a birth certificate. You have to have been issued a birth certificate or have a birth certificate be able to be obtained, right? And here's the thing. That's not a truth for everybody. One, not everybody born in America has a birth certificate. And believe it or not, most infants that are born don't really get to decide if a birth certificate is going to be issued for them. And then there are cases where, one, some people, they got a birth certificate, but then the hospital they were born in burned down before records got digitized. And paper is flammable. Don't know if you're aware of that. Other people, like a natural disaster, hurricane come along, boom. So some people, their birth certificate was issued, but it was destroyed, and there is no original birth certificate, and it was never digitized. So there's no birth certificate to prove they're an American citizen, even though they are American citizens. So the issue should not be, can you prove you're a citizen? The issue should be, are you a citizen? So right now, there is a thing that some people can use if they simply can't prove they're an American citizen, even though they are. There's a thing that says, I testify under penalty of perjury that I'm an American citizen. Okay? This is interesting. There's very few cases of non-citizens voting, but the cases where non-citizens have voted have been, they use forged birth certificates or passports. So the SAVE Act wouldn't even have prevented the very few cases of non-citizens voting that have happened. And here's the other interesting thing. Of the people who have been convicted of voting, even though they were non-citizens, none of them have been convicted of perjury. So there is not a single case. There's not one provable case of a non-citizen voting by checking that box. There's not one, at least not that anybody can find. There are cases of non-citizens voting, very, very small number of them, less than 100 over 40 years. But there are, I think the number is 30,000 in Arizona. In Arizona, they have kind of a unique election law. They tried to do what the SAVE Act is trying to do, where you needed to have certain proof of citizenship to vote. And so and it got struck down for federal elections only. Like state elections, it applies. Federal elections, it doesn't. And so it makes Arizona a really interesting barometer, because I think a lot of people, they just sit there and they go, hypothetically, this number of people could be disenfranchised, right? But it's been around for 13 years. I think we can safely conclude that most people that could have gotten a birth certificate would have gotten one by now. And we can conclude that because they are voting in federal elections, they have an interest in voting. They just can't vote in state elections. So you have this specific number of actual voters who can vote in federal elections but not state elections in Arizona, and that number of people would be disenfranchised entirely if the SAVE Act passed. And if you were to take the percentage of people in Arizona that meet that criteria and extrapolate that across the country, and there's no reason to think that you're more or less likely to fit that criteria if you live in Arizona than, say, if you live in Nevada or Nebraska or North Dakota or Minnesota or any other state. You get about 1.2 million American citizens that are legally allowed to vote who would not be legally allowed to vote. So well over 1 million Americans would be disenfranchised by the SAVE Act in order to save what amounts to about 2 or 3 votes per year by non-citizens. Tell me how that's fair. And you wouldn't be telling me it was fair if you were one of those people who just did not have a birth certificate. And that is for people that have had 13 years to get one. I think we can say there are more people that are just going to have a struggle to get their birth certificate. If you don't believe me, ask Brett. Brett has talked before on this show. There was a typo on his birth certificate. So it was like a real struggle for him to get one. It took him like 6 months to get a birth certificate. And so that's the other thing, is this close to an election, you shouldn't be changing election laws anyway, because it's just not righteous. It is going to disenfranchise people. And I've heard some people talk about who it disenfranchises. And honestly, I don't care. I don't care. I will fight just as hard for a Republican's right to vote as I will a Democrat's right to vote. So like married women are going to be disproportionately affected by this, because you have to take your marriage certificate. The best case scenario of this, you have to take your birth certificate and your marriage certificate and your driver's license and show that you legally changed your name and that this is who you are. You have to take that to DMV if your birth certificate doesn't match your current driver's license. And there are people like that. There are a lot of people like that. And most of the people that are like that are married women. And married women vote Republican. I mean, like, it's like 52-48%. But it disproportionately affects Republicans. And I think that's wrong. I see a lot of Democrats upset about it, and rightly so. But it's not just because it affects Democrats. It affects women. It affects Americans. I say, if you are an American citizen who hasn't, committed a felony and don't live in a felony, live in a state where there's felonies, or where I think that felons should be allowed to vote. I think prisoners should be allowed to vote, but that's another story. But I don't think that whether or not you can find a birth certificate should affect your right to vote. I like the guy who said sometimes CAT spells dog. I don't know who said that. Did J.D. Vance? That sounds like something J.D. Vance would say. Both losers. Trump for a green king of green. I don't know what all that's about. I don't know if Pat is being serious or joking. I think that the people in Greenland should be able to decide what happens in Greenland. Call me crazy. I mean, like, I why should Donald Trump decide what happens in Greenland? Um, so I don't know. I agree. So yeah. So Pat, I don't know what you're whether you're being serious or sarcastic. We have like there are people that will seriously say the kind of things you're saying on this show. I agree, Pat Paulston. 1108. We should crown Trump King of England. Trump is the dictator who wants his name and his face on everything, so people can't get away from him. Oh goodness. By the way, did anybody see? I think this is interesting. I was watching the interview about the Obama Presidential Library, and it's really something. Did you know? I did not know this, but I learned it, and I like learning things. The Obama Presidential Library actually has a section in it that is run by the Chicago Public Library, where you can actually check out books. It's the first presidential library that actually functions as an actual library. Isn't that cool? And there are 3,500 titles curated by the Obamas that you can choose from. And this is just like says so much about the Obamas that they're like, oh, these are our 3,500 favorite books. They've read a lot of books. Can you imagine Trump, Donald, and Melania sitting there going, oh, these are 35 of our favorite books? I mean, they would be coloring books. I don't even know if the Trumps have ever read 3,500 words, unless you're counting Donald's tweets. When she doesn't even read his own tweets, you can tell because there's so many typos in them. Like here's 35 of our favorite books. Don't worry about the rest of them. These are the curated ones. Anyway, I just find it's very cool that the Obamas actually have a functioning library in the library, whereas Donald Trump is going. He doesn't have. He doesn't want to have any books. He doesn't want to have any museum. Doesn't want to have any documents. His will be like most of the presidential libraries are kind of like a museum of the history of while they were president, right? And so there's, like some, like the documents and stuff from their presidency. Obama had his digitized. Actually, Obama's is impressive in a way because his is not just selling how great Obama as a president was. Did you know there's a whole wing in the Obama Presidential Library that's dedicated to the Tea Party and the Tea Party movement? And it's not criticizing it. It's just this is a thing that happened, and he insisted on having that because he wanted to show what his opponents had to say about him while he was like that. That is something so remarkable when you compare it to what Trump would do. But Trump's just he's literally talking about, oh, this is going to be the first branded presidential library. But it's such a contrast. One is about learning and the other is about ignorance and bragging about ignorance. So like Biff says, Trump is a dictator who wants his name and face on everything so people can't get away from him. Exactly. It's just another way to shove his big, ugly, orange poop face in everybody's else's face. If I can get a passport, I can prove citizenship. Yes, but you need a passport. You need a birth certificate to get a passport. You can't get a birth certificate or a passport just by going, yeah. How anyway. 45 states won't have anyone voting. No. 45 states. I didn't say that you have to have that particular ID to vote. I said that particular ID is one of the documents you can use to prove you're a citizen. The others still apply. Certified birth certificate. And if you don't have a certified birth certificate, Pat, what do? Not just you don't have one at your house, like one was not issued or the one that was issued is destroyed. What do? What do American citizens do who simply do not have a birth certificate that can be obtained, Pat? A valid U.S. passport or passport card, a certificate of naturalization. Right. This is for American born, but a certificate of naturalization everybody is going to have if they're naturalized. A consular report of birth abroad or certification of report of birth. A state-issued driver's license or ID card only if the state explicitly requires proof of U.S. citizenship to obtain it and a citizenship marker is printed directly on the card. Note, standard driver's license and basic real IDs do not count as proof of citizenship of their birth. This is what I'm saying. Patrick says libtard excuses. Okay, but aside from name calling and making fun of people who have disabilities, what are they supposed to do, Pat? Tell me what they're supposed to do. If somebody was not issued a birth certificate, does the birth make you a citizen, or does the issuing of a certificate make you a citizen? Or do you magically become a citizen once the certificate is issued? If you have already shown my birth certificate to get my real ID driver's license, it's short bus stupidity to think I need to show my birth certificate to register to vote. Okay. When I registered to vote, when I moved to Texas, I registered to vote and got my driver's license at the same time. I showed my birth certificate to register to vote, not to get my driver's license. So it's all taking I showed my birth certificate to register to vote. But whether or not you think it's short bus stupidity or whatever nonsense you're trying to ramble on about here, the fact is the law says that a standard driver's license, regardless of what you showed to get it, is not sufficient to vote. They are the only things that allow you to vote under the SAVE Act currently. High cholesterol and diabetes will prove one's a citizen. That's pretty funny. What if women are born with their name but got married later on and changed their name? Okay, there's a lot of confusion on this, and I think it's a valid question. All right, so your wife, woman gets married, and she changed her name legally. And so, like, my wife got married, changed her last name to Scaletta. Her last name was Mills. Well, my wife legally changed her first name when she got married, so now her birth certificate actually matches. For most married women, they change their name legally, and they have a change of name certificate, and they have a birth certificate, and they have a driver's license. All right. So for most people, most married women, let's be clear, for most married women, they have the documents they need if they have the birth certificate, right? They have a marriage certificate. They have a birth certificate. All they have to do, what they have to do is they have to bring their birth certificate and their marriage license to DMV and establish that they are this person that was born, and then they can register to vote. If they do that, then it's all well and good. But some women may have lost their one certificate or another, and they have to order it, and that takes money and that takes time. And then the other thing is they still have to go to DMV and do it. Why? There's not like some rash of women that are lying about getting married and voting. There is no problem solved there. There is a problem caused. But I think that the right just dismisses the inconvenience of having to do that and the fact that that is going to eventually prevent some women from voting and cause issues for them. And the left, I think, has, tried to hyperbolize that a little bit and said, by making it sound like 40 million women are going to be disenfranchised. 40 million women aren't going to be disenfranchised. A lot of them have already done that when they registered. This mostly applies to just new voter registrations, so Pumpkinhead that was talking about, I did this already, whatever. The reality is most of this is only people that are newly registering, but it's still going to affect a lot of people. And then there are the people that didn't show a birth certificate when they initially registered, that are going to have to rectify this. And then here's the other thing. Even if, like, you just move, you have to go to DMV and do it in person. You have to show your new registration in person. That is an inconvenience. Why can't you you've already proven you're a citizen, right? Why can't you just go online and put your new address in? There's no reason for that. This is creating hurdles for American citizens to vote. It is not just proving you're an American citizen to vote. And the thing is, people who are American citizens, like people who rent, are the ones that are more likely to move. And people who make less money are more likely to pay rent. So this disproportionately affects people who make less money than people who make more money. So it's like everything else. The poorer you are, the less right you have in Trump's America. So when the next election comes up and none of what you're saying happens, will it? Okay, what do you mean none of what I'm saying is going to happen? I don't. What am I saying is going to happen? What have I said? What prediction have I made? I am saying if the SAVE Act happens, in order to vote, you have to do those things. And the thing is, you're all worried about whether or not what I am saying is going to happen, all based on something that hasn't happened. Like, non-citizens aren't voting. And so there you're not worried about whether what you're saying is happening or not. Do MAGAs ever think, like, is there something in the hat that like penetrates your brain and freezes it or something? They have to change their name on these documents so that they are valid to vote. You go to the country and Alfie, yours, mine, from 1950, really available to. You go to the. I'm sorry. Aline says you go to the country and Alfie, yours dash mine from 1950, really available, took 30 minutes. All right, this might be like a speech to text thing because I have no clue what you're talking about. Then No Way Jerk 8064 says, lies you clown. I don't know what lies I am telling. N. Okay. I'm sorry, Susan. I don't know what N means. I mean, I know what the word in means. I don't know what you're referring to. I went through the hassle of just finding my birth certificate, let alone have to go through the trouble of getting it changed again. Same with passports, too. It's just to make it tougher for minorities. And a lot of this does disproportionately affect minorities. I mean, that's a fact. Brett, if you're on, if you wanted to, tell what happened to you again, I think that's like Brett. It was no, he was trying to get his. It took him like months to get his birth certificate, and they had made a typo in doing it. Like I think it was the birth date wrong or something like that. It was a day off. Who is going to be disenfranchised? The people. Again, Tammy, I explained it. Right now, there are people in Arizona who are legal American citizens who simply do not have birth certificates to get. Like, there are different reasons, but there are some people in America who are American citizens who are born in America, who either because their birth certificate was destroyed or was never issued in the first place, simply do not have access to a birth certificate. Who doesn't have it? I already explained it twice. People that ever had one issued or one that it was never issued. How is it so hard to understand that? I'm using English words, right? I didn't like accidentally start speaking in a language I don't speak. Over 1 million Americans who don't have the documents need to vote under this stupid bill. Then they shouldn't be. Why shouldn't they be able to vote, Tammy? Why should somebody not be able to vote because they weren't issued a birth certificate when they were born? What did they do that you didn't do? What didn't they do that you did? Did you demand as an infant, and when the doctor slapped you, did you, instead of crying, say, I demand a birth certificate? It's not about IDs. And no, you don't have to do ID to do. I barely ever need my ID to do anything. This is such a joke. You don't need I take my ID out maybe 2 or 3 times a year. You don't need your ID to do everything now. Do you live here? Can you be honest? When is the last time you had to show your ID? These are American citizens who have the right to vote in elections. Just because they don't have a document doesn't mean they shouldn't be allowed to vote. You have to do all that when you get married. No, you don't. Yeah, Tammy, we live in reality here. It's annoying when a MAGA troll comes into the channel swinging and name calling from jump. They get blocked. I like it when they try to sound slick and like an ass and look like an ass as usual. There is no excuse. You have to have an ID. No, you don't. No, Tammy, you don't have to have an ID to. All of us that actually live in America know that we don't have to have an ID to do everything these days. I don't need it. When is the last time I had to show my ID other than to, all right, if I get a new, like when I get a new job, I have to show my ID to, for tax purposes. Other than that, I can't think of anything that I needed to take my ID out of my wallet for. I barely ever have to take my ID out of my wallet. Maybe like a half dozen times in the last dozen years. So if you're perfectly okay with over 1 million people with their right to vote being stripped of that right for the sake of 3 illegal immigrants voting every year. And those 3 illegal immigrants had birth certificates. They were forged. They were fake. But it didn't prevent any of them from voting. What if a relative had their birth certificate, let alone they are in another state? I guess we have to go through the trouble to dig it up just to prove that it's a fair election, but elections have always been fair. Right. And that's this is one of the things I was trying to point out with the Arizona situation. And I use the Arizona situation because it has been around for a while. And there are these people that exist. It is not a theory that these people don't exist. These people want to vote. These people do vote. These people have voted. And none of them have ever even been prosecuted for lying. There's no evidence at all that there are people that are just saying they're citizens and voting and lying about it. There has never been as far as I know, as far as I can find, and I've looked through the Heritage Foundation's database, there has not been one person who has checked that box in any state that has been prosecuted for perjury for voting illegally. Like, not one of them. It just, I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm saying it hasn't happened. The entire premise of this law is based on something made up. That is quite frankly pathetic and ludicrous. I have millions of people in Pennsylvania who still do not have a real ID. And a real ID is not enough to vote. Like, the real ID just kind of muddies the waters. You can have a real ID and not vote, not be allowed to vote, or not be allowed to register to vote. A real ID, you can show that ID to vote, you know, as to confirm who you are, but not to establish citizenship. No, we've already been through that. You don't have to have an ID to walk through the Obama presidential library. That's a lie. That's just not true. I know that you like regurgitating lies you heard and not looking them up. But no, Tammy, that's not true. We've already addressed that. Don't come late to class and then give wrong answers. The fact is, you get a discount if you are from Illinois and show your ID to show you're from Illinois. You can get a discount or even in for free, depending. But no, you don't need a driver's license. You don't need any ID at all. And you don't need one to go to the grocery store like Donald Trump thinks. This is a lie. This is a lie, MAGA. And it's like, it's weird. Because you like allegedly live in America. And so you know for a fact that you're not asked for your ID to go everywhere and do everything. You know for a fact that when you go to the grocery store, nobody asks for your ID. So why do you push this lie, Tammy? Why is it so important to you to disenfranchise other Americans because they had the audacity to not demand a birth certificate when they were born? I'd like to see the Obama library. I really want to go to the Obama library. It seems like a beautiful place. An estimated 21 million American citizens do not have documentary proof of citizenship readily available, representing over 9% of all U.S. eligible voters who could face disenfranchisement under the SAVE Act. I'm assuming that's where he's going. And yes, that, like, a lot of those can get it. And like, here's an example of somebody that may, that would be affected, or that could be affected, is, let's just take the great state of Texas. Let's say somebody is from Dallas and they go to school at the University of Texas in Austin, right? And their parents have like a little fire safety box with all the important documents in it, including the, you know, the kids' birth certificates and the parents' birth certificates and the passports and the marriage licenses and all that important stuff. We have a little, you know, like one of those fireproof things where we keep our important documents in. And they keep everything locked up in there. And so the kid goes off to college. Nobody thinks about, hey, you might want to take your birth certificate with you. And so now he's in Austin and the birth certificate's in Dallas. So he doesn't have ready access to it. Now, he could drive home, pick it up, and then drive back to Austin. And that's like 10 hours of driving. The parents could mail it. And it takes a few days to get there. I'm like, he could, you know, get that. But that takes time. And that's why I say you shouldn't be doing these changes this close to an election anyway. You've already got, in some states, You're going to have voting started before this law even goes through, if it were to go through. It's just there's a ton wrong with it. It's a really bad law, and it's not just you have to show ID when you vote. Most states you already have to show some kind of ID when you vote. The contractors, and I mean, to be fair on voter ID laws, they've done studies, a number of studies, and for the most part, just voter ID laws don't seem to have much impact on voting one way or another. So it's not about the showing IDs when you vote. Like Tammy, who has never read a book, I am assure you she has never read a book, been to a library, watched a documentary, or gotten a B in high school. Like none of that matters to her. The contractors that built that library have been getting stiffed. No, they haven't. There are a couple of subcontractors who the contractors haven't paid. And yet, I mean, there's a bunch of, that's a bunch of nonsense and trying to politicize something. I used to work for Accenture, and when I worked for Accenture, I worked for Google. And they're trying make it sound like Obama's at fault for a subcontractor not getting paid. Give me a break. Like, read a book, people. Or just go to Snopes. It's so insane how, but Donald Trump literally has like thousands of people suing him for not paying his bills, and that's all just to get Trump. It is not listed as a library on purpose. Okay. You mean Trump or Obama? I mean, whatever. Obama's, I think it's really fascinating that you can actually, the Obama Presidential Library is actually a library. Like, you can go and you can check out books there. Say back, so Harry's finishing his sentence. These figures derive from comprehensive studies conducted by the Brennan Center for Justice and the University of Maryland Center for Democracy and Civic Engineering. So this is going back to his earlier comment about the people who can't vote. Take your ID. You will need it to enter the... No, you won't, Tammy. We've already been through this. Why do you keep... Okay, let's put Tammy on timeout. Because after so many lies, you just, if you want to lie with impunity, go somewhere else and do it. At least we don't have to worry. And you're free to disagree with me, and you're even free to be wrong. But after you've been corrected about 6 times and you keep just pushing the same lie, then you're just a liar, and I have no business entertaining liars. At least we don't have to worry that the president will send pallets full of cash to Iran on cargo planes in the middle of the night. I hope that was sarcastic. You realize that Trump is giving Iran a lot more money than Obama. Tammy, just look up the Snopes on this. Do you guys even care if your talking points are lies, or do you just regurgitate them anyway? You don't need your ID to get into the Obama Presidential Library, but if you want from Illinois and you show an ID to prove you are from Illinois, you get a discount. You do not need to show it to get a grip on yourself. Tammy is really, really just gonna stick to this point that you need your driver's license, that you need to show your ID to do everything, even though she knows for a fact that she doesn't. That nobody's asking for her ID to do everything. When will the contractors be paid by the Obama Foundation? The Obama Foundation has already paid the contractors, Tammy. When the contractors pay the subcontractors has nothing to do with Obama. Do you know how contracts work? Do you know what a subcontractor is? Disinformationists are funny. They really think they are swaying public opinion. The building is over budget and the contractors are not getting paid. They're just going to keep saying the same stupid lies out loud again over and over. Harry, you need to... Okay. Let's like your 50th lie is enough. Bye, Tammy. I would say it's been nice knowing you, but it hasn't. Okay. Tammy no longer will be commenting. Too bad. Yes, my license that I have had for years is used to get my library card. When I vote, I don't need a passport or my birth certificate, just my license. Because you're already registered, Biff. Nobody's saying that you need the that you need your birth certificate to vote. You need your birth certificate to register. Why is it that you guys cannot be honest? I'm serious. Why can't you have the honest conversation that we are trying to have? Your driver's license is enough to vote. It is not enough to register to vote. That is what the conversation is, Biff. I should have. I don't like the way you spoke to Kitty a while back. Well, Tammy's not speaking to anybody anymore. She's contact the hospital of birth. Okay, but sometimes the hospital of birth is no longer there. That's one of the big issues. A lot of people in Louisiana can't get birth certificates because of Hurricane Katrina destroyed the hospital of birth. Sometimes hospitals burn down. There are some people that literally the original birth certificate either was never issued or just no longer exists. It has been destroyed. And there's no digitized version of it. I was actually born in Louisiana. Fortunately, mine got digitized. I can still order one. But some people in Louisiana that were born in Louisiana cannot get one. Stick up for being shadow banned, get lost. Yeah, well, Tammy's not an issue anymore. If you really want to annoy a maggot, don't time them out because then it tells them they can't comment. I think it's gross. The 250th claims it is about bringing people together, and their opening statement in the word is libtard in the speech. Yeah, it's like there was this. Oh, this is actually this. Thank you for bringing this up because they're showing all these all this footage on Fox News of the Freedom 250 thing. And they're like talking about how thousands of people are there. And it's like, I've seen more people on the field in a World Cup game. I mean, they don't even have enough to form two soccer teams. And they're acting like there's just, there's thousands of people. And then, like one of them, there was one clip where the guy's sitting there going, it doesn't look as much like this, but if you're down there on the field, it looks like a lot more. It feels like a lot more. And then they have somebody down there and it's still like, echo. Oh. I mean, it is so sad. And the thing that bothers me about this, I'm an American citizen. I served in the military. My father was in Vietnam. My grandfather was in World War II. His father was in World War I. His grandfather, I have ancestors that fought on both sides of the Civil War. I have ancestors that fought in the Revolution. I have ancestors that have fought in every single war in the history of the country. I have ancestors that include the Roosevelts. Both of them are Republican and a Democrat. When, by the way, they were cousins. I have ancestors. According to Ancestry.com, I'm related to both Rosa Parks and Muhammad Ali. My original ancestors came over here to Jamestown. Yes, my ancestry goes back. And I have ancestors that were slaves, and I have ancestors that own slaves. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying my family tree goes back. Not like like I did anything to do it. But the idea that you have to be a Trump supporter to love America is ridiculous. I honestly wonder how anybody that loves America can be a Trump supporter. Because everything Trump does is contradictory to everything that America stands for. And this should have been a celebration but for everyone. It should have been a celebration of America, not a celebration of Donald Trump. The bicentennial was really something. The bicentennial was completely nonpartisan. But Donald Trump has used the 250th to drive a wedge between America. He is the most divisive president in the history of our country. He is more divisive of a political figure than Joseph McCarthy. He is the most divisive political figure in the history of our country, not just the most divisive president. And it makes me sad. It makes like I wish that the Washington Mall was like teeming with people celebrating our country. But he's made it so that nobody that disagrees with him wants to go, and nobody that agrees with him can afford to. Just hide them and they can keep spewing their nonsense, but no one has to look at it or read it or see it. Birth certificates do get lost and are very hard to replace, and in some cases are just impossible to replace. There are some people that it is just destroyed. The original is destroyed. There's no way. That's why I point out these 30,000 voters in Arizona. They've had 13 years and they want to vote. If there were a way to get them, they would have gotten them. If you are not a U.S. citizen, you do not get to vote. Nobody, absolutely nobody is arguing that. You can vote if you're a non-citizen. Why would we want someone who is not a citizen to be involved in a decision? Absolutely nobody is arguing that. That's a straw man argument. Nobody is sitting there saying non-citizens should vote. What people are saying is non-citizens aren't voting. My question for you is, should citizens be allowed to vote? Yeah, usually I just, because what you seem to be arguing is only certain citizens should be allowed to vote. Yeah, usually I just hide them, but I wanted them to know them and they got shut up by me. Yeah, sorry. I'm the one that banned Tammy. I just have little patience for just people that have no intention on having an actual honest discussion. I am all for somebody that comes on and disagrees, and if they could do it honestly, that would be great. But if they get corrected 5-6 times and they just keep saying the same stupid comments, then they're never going to say anything that's worthwhile, and they're never going to listen to anything. So what's the point of having them on the channel at that point? I was listening to that person poop on Kitty a long time ago, and I just let them bump their gums, and it pissed me off. You're talking about Rainbow Kitty, right? I remember that. They were making some kind of trans remarks to Rainbow Kitty. Obama's always thinking his presidential center has a new branch of the Chicago Public Library. I just love that. Don't you? I just love that. Like, hey, and I'm sorry if I'm the only one that this impresses. It says 3,500 favorite books that are there. How many people have a list of 3,500 of their favorite books? Fair enough. Quote from the Tammy. Hopefully you will follow. Oh, goodness gracious. If I had seen that, I would have blocked her then. Absolute facts. I don't know what. Hopefully you were talking about something I said. Trump, or something that's, Trump is scared that if Republicans lose the midterms, he will be. And he will be. He knows what he's doing is impeachable. Like when J.D. Vance accidentally was trying to say, he's trying to say, oh, can you imagine, like, oh, what Nixon did is like by today's standards is no comparison. And what he really meant is Richard Nixon, like Donald Trump is so corrupt. What he did, what he's doing makes the second most corrupt president in the history of the country look tame. He accidentally said that without meaning to. My birthday was handwritten on a birth certificate. I was born in a doctor's office. When it was digitized, the date was misread. Okay, so that's what it was. I needed 6 points of proof at the DMV to get my ID so I could get my SSA card. Had to change. Yeah, and it took you like a long time. I remember you mentioning this before, and I think it's a perfect example. And it's not like you were, like doing something wrong, or you were a bad person or something, or you were, like being irresponsible, or didn't have a house or a credit card or function in society like a regular human being. Hate to change topics. Have you covered the mess of the American? Well, boom. Like, I'm behind on the comments, but it's funny that we kind of went in that same direction. I think it's just such a sad, sad state. You have 18 years to fix that problem. To fix what problem? How do you go back in time? Do you invent a time machine that goes back in time and creates the birth certificate for you? How do you fix it? Why don't these people in Arizona just fix it? How do you fix it? If you don't have one issued, how do you get it issued? Like, please actually think things through. Look to this day, I still wouldn't have my birth certificate if it wasn't for somebody working at it. SSA, that was sympathetic. There's some real dumb mother fornicators out there, and they're all Trump penis writers. Sorry. It's a monetized channel, so I can't swear. I had to use my ID today when I brought my NyQuil for my cold and cough. Some states that's the case. Most states it's not. I'm imagining you're making this up and that you really didn't buy NyQuil today. And then you're just trying to make a snarky little point. That wasn't to prove who you are. It's to prove how old you are. Drinking, smoking, flying. Yes, all things that are age, that need to prove you're an age. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I actually quit drinking about a year and a half ago. I hadn't had to show my ID to buy alcohol in like 30 years. You only need to show your ID to prove who you are. That's all. Okay, you're conflating things. For those drinking, smoking, flying, some things you have to prove who you are. Some things you have to prove how old you are. None of that has to do with proving you're an American citizen or having a birth certificate. Again, this is what MAGA wants to do. They want to make it about just showing ID. It is not just about showing ID. It's not. And yes, most people, have an ID. Some people don't. That does not mean they shouldn't be allowed to vote. Sometimes getting your ID is difficult. I'm one of them. The majority of voter fraud is not related to illegal immigrants. IDs work because you are present holding it. Okay, most of the cases of voter fraud have forged documents. Having IDs does not actually do anything one way or the other. They've done studies where they've passed voter ID laws, and it basically has almost no impact at all on voting either way. But again, the SAVE Act is not a voter ID law. Stop treating it like it's a voter ID law. It's not. It is not a voter ID law. Did you know? Here's another thing that they don't. How come They don't talk about when they're talking about, oh, all you have. How come when they talk about this and proving you're a citizen, they don't actually mention what's actually in the bill? Here's some other stuff that's in the bill that they never defend and they never talk about, because then they'd have to defend it. One is, there is this federal database, and they want states to mail in or have to send in the voting rolls. All right. One, that is unconstitutional, because it's making the federal government overseeing how the states run elections. And the Constitution is very clear that the states decide how to run the elections, not Donald Trump. The president doesn't get to do that. The executive branch doesn't get to do that. The legislative branch has certain powers in it, but not those powers. There's actual language in the Constitution that decides who does what, and Congress doesn't get to tell the states who's allowed to vote. That's just not a thing. The whole turning the voter rolls over to the federal government, one, that's just completely unconstitutional. Number two, this database that they want to run things through has proven error rates. It rejects American citizens as, saying that they're not allowed to vote. That's number two. Is it falsely takes American citizens off the voter rolls. So that's one. States are required to send in the things. That's legal. Number two, wrongly saying American citizens can't vote. Having an American citizen told they can't vote is literally disenfranchising that American citizen. Number three, this happens routinely. And some of the people that are going to be sent, that are going to be stripped off the rolls, aren't going to have time to prove that they are actually American citizens. They aren't even going to be notified that they've been taken off the rolls. Number four, another issue with it that they never want to talk about is these laws about if somebody accidentally registers somebody that didn't, that was a non-citizen or something like that, then they can be prosecuted and sent to jail. Like the election workers can be convicted of crimes that they didn't even intend to commit and go to prison. So that's going to have an effect on people not wanting to go and volunteer. Nobody who wants to be an election worker if you can just get sent to prison for it. So you're going to have people that don't want to go and vote. You're going to have understaffed elections. So if your primary concern is election security, how does and getting the votes counted quickly, how is stripping away half the election workers, how is that going to make it more secure? How is that going to speed up results? These are the things that they don't want to talk about when they go, well, I've got to show my ID when I go to Costco. Costco is a private company where you have to have a paid membership. If you have to show your Costco ID to get into Costco, that's not the same thing. Who cares where else you have to show ID? That's irrelevant to the topic. And I think that's a good point. It doesn't matter. Showing your ID to go to Costco is not the same thing as voting. Oh, yeah, another. All right. How old are you? Don't give a poop. Because if you look 19 or whatever, they probably will ask for your ID. Uh, okay, again, I'm a 58-year-old man. I have had to show my ID maybe a half dozen times in the last 20 years to do anything. This idea that you have to like show your ID, come on. Do you realize that we actually live and function in a society and we know these things? I never had to show my ID to buy NyQuil. I never have to show my ID for beer, but they know me and my age. However, if you buy weed at a dispensary, you must be. I can't do that here in Texas. There's a certain allotment of grams per month, and it has to be recorded within the state. Most meaning less than half of all states. Bull poop, you're so stupid, he said. Spelling so stupid wrong. Just to point out, the people who are getting stiff are the contractors of the contractors. The contractors contracted to work on the Obama library. And it's not even that they're getting stiffed. There is a delay in these, payments. And everybody, like there's Snopes article. I think it's Snopes article. It's all just nonsense. It's a thing that they're trying to use to make Obama look bad. And this is just the way the process usually works out. Like you hire a contractor, the contractor hires subcontractors, the subcontractor does the work, then there's like a delay. Because once the work gets done, then they bill the subcontractor bills the contractor, the contractor bills the whoever, the parent organization is, and then they pay. And so there's usually like a 3-month lag between billing and getting paid. And it's just, some people have not gotten paid yet. It's not that they got stiffed. And it has nothing at all to do with Obama. Do you have anything to say for real? You do have to show ID and insurance card for every medical appointment. I've never had to show my ID for a medical appointment. Maybe in some states you do, but honestly, I've even gone and had surgery and I don't think I had to show my ID. Well, yeah, I had an obliteration done. I had AFib, and they went and did a little bit. I never showed my ID. I did have to show I had to give them my insurance information, but I don't think I had to show my ID. If the federal government wants to issue free passports, I would be okay with ID to vote. It needs to be issued within 15 same day. And again, showing your IDs when you vote, again, voter ID laws, if you're just talking about strictly the voter ID law, have very little impact on elections either way. Like, I don't think they do the damage that some people would say, but they don't have an impact either way. It's not like all of a sudden all these illegal votes are prevented or anything. They just cost money and do nothing. They accomplish nothing. There's not like all kinds of people that are voting illegally that are getting caught. All the structures at the 250th are just basic scaffolds with paper prints to make it look like they're marble over the arches, and they're so proud of it. There's even one, I don't know if you've seen this one, Brett, but there's a picture where there's like one that's being held up by like little wooden splints or something. It's just like everything else with Trump, just a presentation with no substance. The 250th would have been awesome if he didn't put his fingers in it like one of his victims. Everything he touches just withers and dies. Like the Smithsonian had they actually do an annual 4th of July thing, where they have musical guests and come. And they said they had all kinds. So there's like there was the America 250 and Freedom 250. All right, America 250 was supposed to be a celebration of the 250th birthday of America, and it was congressionally funded, congressionally approved. Then Donald Trump decided to turn this into Freedom 250, which would be a celebration of Donald Trump. And so Smithsonian had all these, like, they couldn't say who they were, but like they said that they had acts booked that would have been amazing. Like that would have really made something amazing. I don't know who they were, like Taylor Swift or whoever, but like A-list talent that was ready to do it for America 250. But then when it became the Freedom 250, they Trump couldn't even get the living half of Milli Vanilli to come and lip sync. Kelly, you were late to the party when it came to banning. Oh, had you already banned Tammy? Sorry, it's because I'm so far behind, but thank you for letting me know. Oh, by the way, Brett, I don't know if I told you Harry is a moderator now. I mean, me and Kelly almost certainly disagree on the issue of asylum, but the difference is I can have a reasonable, honest, cordial conversation about our differences, whereas MAGA morons can't. And we live in different countries, so, you know, I think the issue is a little bit different. Trump was acquitted on both impeachments. So that just means that cowardly Senate Republicans couldn't convict him. That doesn't mean he didn't do it. January 6th was an attempt to overthrow the country. And the first impeachment, he tried to extort Zelensky into doing a fake investigation into Hunter Biden to make Joe Biden look bad. Those facts didn't change because Ted Cruz is a coward who runs when it gets cold outside. Yes, because the Republican Senate, or the Republican minority in the Senate, will block any attempt to remove Donald Trump from office. Okay. Again, they weren't bogus nonsense. Either A, you just don't care what reality is, or B, you don't know what reality is. Again, he tried to extort Zelensky on the first impeachment. That is a fact. The transcript wasn't a lie. I need you to do me a favor, though, are words that actually came out of Trump's mouth. And January 6th happened. We watched it unfold live on TV. Congratulations to the junior doctors. They have finally decided to stop striking praise Donald as he would want us to. I don't know what that what is that in reference to, Harry? Last I checked, I have a bachelor's degree from a major university and make over $100K in a respectable field. Trump voter here. So congratulations, you have a piece of paper from a university. You must be smart. That's great. I'm king of Hawaii, by the way. Let's get Jim. Let me guess. It's in gender studies. Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess he does not have. I know smart people. I know people that are smarter than me that voted for Trump, but they turn off their brain when it comes to Trump, and they people that are that based on their own ideology should be against Trump or like supporters of Trump. People have said that they're against legislating from the bench, are now all very, very excited that the Supreme Court is legislating from the bench. It just means that you don't apply what you learned or what you think to Donald Trump. That does not make you right. People with six-figure incomes and bachelor's degrees also voted against Trump. So, hi, Kelly. What's your opinion on 47 finally going to pay E. Jean Carroll her money? Well, he's going to pay her some of it. He's getting the first one was sent back. And apparently this is like because he had to pony up the money before he could appeal. There's not much he can do about it. This is a done deal. It can't go any further or whatever. But this is just the first one. The second one is still out there. I think that this says a lot about the second one because the second one is all based on the first one. But yeah, she's going to get her money, and he's going to throw a tantrum over it, and there's nothing he can do about it. He can't even just decide to not give her the money because the money has already had to be paid for the appeal. And so it's held in like escrow or whatever. I don't know if I'm using the right words. But they hold the money for this appeal to make sure that you're not just going to, not pay it. So he had to put the money, set the money aside in order to appeal. And then that money, if the appeal failed, automatically goes to the plaintiff. So we already covered that subject. Neva, unfortunately, he has already appealed, I believe. No, that's the other one. And he's like saying but he can't appeal to anybody. Like the Supreme Court is it. That's the final decision. There's nowhere else to go with it. I heard on Midas that his final appeal was shot down. Yeah, that's what happened today. The Supreme Court did not rule on it. They said that they're not going to hear it. There's nothing to hear. They're like the case is not even worth listening to. Oh, he said he's going to appeal? Like he's like, I'm not done fighting. Yeah, you are. It's like, sometimes you watch a boxing match and the guy gets knocked out and it's TKO and the ref is saying it's a TKO and the guy sitting there still going, I'm not done yet. And it's like, the ref is like, yes, you are. Like whether he acknowledges he's out of appeals or not, doesn't matter. Because one, the decision's out of his hand, and B, the money's out of his hand. So he's like, it's done whether he admits it or not. Maybe tell me the blue states is not commit voted fraud. Maybe tell the blue states to not commit voted fraud in the first place. Blue states don't commit voter fraud in the first place. I'll check it later. I just want to finish this stream and then go to dinner. Okay, fine. Long as you stay away from the kids. Brett, he has to pay the smaller $5 million lawsuit. The bigger $83.3 million is under review. Yeah. So the second one is still under review, but I think that they're refusing to hear this one is a strong indication of where they're going to land on that one. And what I do think is interesting is the second one does not involve the actual stipulation of the facts. So for those that don't know what is going on, he lost the first lawsuit and then he sued, or then he repeated the allegation. And then since the facts were already adjudicated, they didn't re-adjudicate the facts of the first case, just whether or not he had actually said the same slander that he had said the first time. And he did. And that because he had already lost once and then kept repeating it, that's why the jury made the second one so much bigger to say, learn your lesson and shut up. Defo didn't just go look that up. Your MAGA voice sounds like Goofy. Is that who it is? I don't know. You know what? This is speaking of the whole transgender thing. I was hoping I have an idea for the whole Lincoln Memorial Reflection Pool thing. So here's my thought. Let's paint the bottom of it like a rainbow flag. And then like we could reflect on that. I would love to see Matt. If I were president, the next president, I would say let's do that just to troll the MAGAverse. You need to drive you. You need ID to drive. Okay. What if people don't drive? And you don't need ID to drive. You need a driver's license to drive. That's because it's a driver's license. You need ID to rent anything. No, you don't. So having is a all right. You just said a bunch of things that are irrelevant and or not true. Nothing is wrong with showing an ID to vote. Just make it free and available. And okay, hang on 1 second. No, you can't drink that, buddy. My cat is trying to drink something that's not good for cats to drink. Hold on 1 second.
All right, broadcasting now.
So this is my cat. This is Huggy Bear. As you can see, he's a pretty kitty. Even if you don't agree with my politics, you have to agree that my cat is a pretty cat. Okay. Every once in a while, he likes to crash the show. Obama doesn't have to work too hard to make himself look bad. Whatever. Obama definitely is more popular than Obama. His approval ratings are like basically double what Trump's are. They're going to try to make. I think I just misspoke. Obama's approval ratings are 67%. Trump's are 34%. So that whatever you want to say about who looks bad or whatever, reality has a different opinion than you. They're trying to make it law just before election so that it's difficult to achieve. And yeah, the closer to the election you get, the harder it's going to be for people to get what they need. And it's also just completely unconstitutional. Even just the fact that it's an an unfunded mandate. But even if they got rid of the filibuster, I'm not sure that it could get through the Senate. Because it doesn't just affect Democrats, right? It affects voters. It affects not just Democratic voters. And some Republicans don't want to actually disenfranchise their own voters for some strange reason. And then they lay off workers or even terminate positions that can handle the influx. Yes. I don't even need ID to pick up meds at the pharmacy for a friend. Just need to know the name and birthday. Yeah. This idea that you like, honestly, I'm like, honestly, other than when it comes to applying for a job, I cannot remember the last time that I had to take my ID out of my wallet. The only thing is when I'm filling out a W-2 to prove citizenship for paying taxes. You need to follow the directions on a Q-tip box next time. Did you know that technically they say you shouldn't clean your ears with a Q-tip? No, it says don't put in your ear, but just stop pushing when you meet resistance. Yes. I mean, and they don't just push. They they don't just push. They sit there and just hammer and hammer with the heel of their hand and trying to jam it into there as much as possible. Ironically, the prime minister who brought in voter ID in the UK forgot his ID and couldn't vote. That's pretty funny. Payback. Following politics is neurotic. Okay. Commenting on the people that follow politics as well. Like, imagine going onto a political stream to make a comment about how you shouldn't be having a political stream or what. Just to point out that the whole point of common law system is that courts can legislate, so the whole foundation of the common law system is the idea the court can make the law if they need to. Well, in America, the idea is that Congress writes the law, and then like the three branches of government, right? The legislative branch writes the laws. or makes the laws. The executive branch enforces the law, and the judicial branch reviews the laws. And they all supposed to go by the Constitution. The whole thing about legislating from the bench. So the idea of legislating from the bench is when the Congress basically decides to bypass Congress and just change what the law says, like they did today with this decision against Lisa Cook, which has very specific details that say they can only be removed, and you can only remove people from independent agencies under certain circumstances. And they're like, no, you don't. No, that's legislating from the bench. That's what we mean. In mentioning Carol, I'm going to check out Truth Social tonight so I could see his meltdown about her. I bet it goes on for many, many paragraphs. I wonder if there's going to be a new lawsuit that comes out of that. Dan Kelly is really far. I try to read all the comments and then I get far behind. He got sidetracked by a few trolls. This is what happens. And it's because I try to engage honestly with dishonest people. Have you seen what the BBC did in regards to his $10 billion lawsuit against? I remember that being a big story. I don't know whatever happened to it, so you can tell me. I haven't heard what they did. That's an interesting case, though. So Donald sued him for $10 billion for what they did on a Panorama documentary about January 6th. And so in response, the BBC filed a motion to court to order Donald Trump to hand over all his personal communications from January 5th to January 7th and loads of other things. And so the Donald Trump legal team have accused them of trying to prosecute him. Discovery is a bitch, isn't it? And they basically, they were making a big deal because they edited the speech. Like they were supposed to show the entire speech. Like every other documentary doesn't have like edited video. Like that's what a documentary is. When I go to the UPS store to pick up an Amazon package delivered there, I show ID, but that's just to show my name. They don't literally check that I am who I am. They just don't want random. And the other thing is, one, like there's a difference between how a private company does things and how the government does things. The other thing is there's like risk reward factors, right? Like if you go to the liquor store and try to buy liquor when you're 20 and you're only 20 and you're not 21, you don't have ID, and they say, I see ID, I need to see ID. And you say, I'm 21. They're like, I need ID. And you say, I don't have any. And they say, sorry, we're not going to buy you liquor, or we're not going to let you buy liquor. And then you turn around, you walk away. If you go to vote, you go to register to vote and you say, I don't have a birth certificate. And you say, okay, you need to check this box saying I, allege under penalty of forgery that I'm a citizen. Like that's the box. That's all this is about, really, is whether or not that box is allowed. Most people register, they have a citizenship. They have proof of citizenship. Some people don't. And so for those people, they check this little box. You know how many people have been prosecuted for perjury for checking that little box when they weren't citizens? None. It's never happened. Not one person has been prosecuted for perjury saying they're a citizen when they're not. That's how often it happens. I hate politics. I love puppies. So I guess Janine Maxwell somehow is on this stream. Congress write legislation, but courts still write case law, which is a form of law. Well, courts aren't supposed to in America. Courts aren't supposed to change what Congress said. Congress are supposed to enforce what Congress meant. I love hot dogs more than puppies, though. What's the difference between a hot dog and a chili dog? All right, I'm sorry. What's the opposite of a hot dog? A chili dog. I ruined my joke. So courts can legislate, just not in the same way. No, courts can't legislate. They're not supposed. The whole Republican yelling for like 30 years was that the liberal courts are legislating from the bench. Every time the court ruled against them, now the court is literally legislating from the bench. Like they are actually inventing things out of full cloth that the legislation didn't say, or even just changing what the legislation says. I like dogs, but I don't like their vocal cords. What's the one state that doesn't count? What's the one state that doesn't? Louisiana. Okay. I'm sorry. I was born in Louisiana. I wouldn't ever sidestep a spotted owl, even if it was almost extinct. Well, nobody can ever say they didn't see a spotted owl because it's spotted. See what I did there? Like spotted owl. They also do parishes instead of counties. Perish the thought. Samson tied torches to 300 foxtails and torched all his enemy crops. Okay. Courts are supposed to write law in America. No, courts aren't supposed to write law. They're supposed to review laws. And courts cannot change what Congress said, but what they can do is that is a bit struck down, or they can just interpret it to mean yes. What the courts are supposed to do is review the laws. They're supposed to say this is according to the Constitution or not against the Constitution, or how the law is being enforced. They'll say this is what the law actually said, and so this is not actually, this is against the law as it was written. So like with what happened today, Congress passed a law that said independent agencies, the president can fire people from independent agencies in certain circumstances and listed those circumstances. Donald Trump tried to fire somebody where those first circumstances didn't apply. So it's specifically written in the legislation what can happen. Now the Supreme Court says, well, the president can do it anyway. So they just ignored what the actual law said and changed what the law said. That's called drafting. That is when we talk about legislating from the bench, that's what we mean, is when the court just decides the law says something different than it actually says, where it's plainly obvious in the actual text. Resistance Kitty, I talked to her the other day in DMs. She has a whole bunch of stuff going on with the Epstein wiki stuff, and so she's just been really busy. But she says hi, Brett. I don't know what's going on with my little pumpkin here. He is. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm doing okay. Please don't eat the daddy. Thank you. All right. Under common law systems, courts create. Say hi to Huggy Bear. Do you guys like Huggy Bear? Yeah, I love my buddy. Under common law systems. Okay. All right. Sorry, Harry. I'm just going to scroll past that because we've had. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Hey, Mary, can you come get Huggy Bear? He's trying to eat me in the podcast. This is chilly. Ouch, ouch. This is chilly. Trying to get my wife to come. I think he needs to go outside.
Come here, baby.
So my wife just came and got Huggy Bear. You guys got to know him a little bit. He's a good boy, even when he's trying to eat me. Courts can interpret law to the opposite meaning if they want in the UK, but they usually do it at the government's request. Effort is the engine. I don't understand what you're talking about, Justin. So that's a chili dog. And that's a chili dog. But a chili dog is never hot. But a hot dog with chili is still a chili dog. Okay, so let's go back up. All right. So Harry says, read that. So under the common law systems, courts create law through the doctrine of precedent. We're supposed to have the doctrine. Roe versus Wade was supposed to be precedent, but it's not like a creation of law, which requires judges to follow the decisions made by higher courts in earlier similar cases. This accumulated body of judicial ruling is known as case law, or we talk about case law, but we mean something different, or judge-made law. We don't have judge-made law is not a thing in the U.S. And in America, the federal government in 49 of the 50 states operates under a common law system, which means judges have limited power to legislate, right? Just not in the same way Congress does. Like in the UK, courts can legislate, but not in the same way Parliament can. Just for clarification, what I'm talking about is a particular talking point that the right wing have for like 40 years. Every time they lost a court case, they would talk about legislating from the bench and how the left is legislating from the bench. And that's why they needed to, change the whole, courts and all of that. And now they're just like making up laws out of full cloth. Like, corporations are people. Citizens United is a perfect example of legislating from the bench, or saying that the Second Amendment, that the militia doesn't matter anymore. Like, they didn't really mean that. That's not just legislating from the bench. That's amending the Constitution from the bench. So I hear what you're saying, but there's a bit of an equivocation going on there, because what we're talking about here is not what it would mean there. So Justin says the strategy is the steering wheel. I don't know. Determination has to do with trying over and over again. I don't know what we're trying. I don't know what you're trying to say, Harry. I think what he's trying to say is that in the UK, the judges have more power to make law than in the United States. I'm trying to pinpoint the exact moment in the U.S. history political figures stopped obeying the people and obeying their own interests and money. I would say that was like right before the Constitution was signed, was ratified. Did you know that the revolution actually cost a lot of money? And the people that paid for the revolution, which only I think is like, it was a pretty small percentage of the population that actually participated in the revolution. The people that were getting taxed were the ones that wanted it, and the ones that had money were the ones that wanted it, and they were the ones that paid for it. And then they had the Articles of Confederation at first, but the problem with the Articles of Confederation is they didn't allow for money for the colonies to actually tax anything. Like, there was no way for them to get paid back by this new government they formed with the Articles of Confederation. And so they were taxing, but one guy in Boston, not in Boston, I want to say Massachusetts, the governor there was taxing more than King George did. So then there was like this rebellion. And so then they said, we don't have a military either to put down this rebellion. But it got put down. And so then they drafted the Constitution to take care of these issues and to get paid back. So the people in the Philadelphia delegation that, came up with the Constitution, drafted it, and wrote it, were primarily the people that the United States government, what became the United States, owed money to. The whole Constitution was for rich people to get their money back. So, for what it's worth. The exact moment in U.S. history political figures stopped obeying the people and obeying their own interest money, that would have been like, yes. It's always been that way. When we say believe you can do it, so if I believe I can dunk a basketball, is that going to make me a foot taller and add 30 inches to my vertical? Basically, judges have the power to write laws, and I mean, like, there are some things you can't do, and I get some of this, all we need is just the will to do it, and it can be done. No, sometimes things can't be done, and just by perseverance. And just because somebody does something doesn't mean they persevered. Sometimes people get lucky. Basically, I mean, you're going to tell me that Mike Lindell is like a genius because he came up with like rubber pillows? Basically, judges have the power to write laws in limited circumstances, unlimited things. That is what I'm trying to say. Okay. And that is true under every common law system. Okay. That is not what people mean when they talk about legislating from the bench here. I don't know about all that. All I know is that Judge Dredd is the law. I love Dredd with Carl Urban. I like the Sylvester Stallone version. Okay, if a court in America makes a decision on what the Constitution says, even if he doesn't say that, can Congress overturn them? Yes, it's happened. And then sometimes the Supreme Court changes its mind. Like with, for better or worse, like they overturn a prior decision, like Dobbs overturned Roe versus Wade. Usually, hopefully, it's the other way around, like Plessy versus Ferguson, which was they upheld the law that separate but equal was okay, even though it was not equal. But it stuck around for 40 years. It is. Okay, the answer is no, even if Congress passes a constitutional amendment. No, they can. It depends on what was unconstitutional about it. I have a Discord, but I don't really use it. I know what Discord is. Discord is what it sounds like when I sing. No, I I do know what Discord is. I do have a Discord. I don't even remember what my Discord is. I tried to start a Discord channel. Got like 40, 50 people on it, but I didn't keep up with it. I'm just not a Discord person for some reason. Basically, he discovered the important. Okay, Justin, can you happy to have you participate, but can you stay on topic? I haven't heard of Discord in a long time. I used to have an account there. It's really good. You should use it. I used to admin a channel. I just walked away from it. Let me see if I can find it. Like I said, I this will be the first time in okay. In like a long time that I don't even know what. Okay. How do I figure out what my okay. Trying to figure out how to get a link here. My Discord name is Kelly Scaletta, if that helps. What is this? Shop. Okay. User settings, see if it's there. Account info. All right, here, I'll just do this. This is my Discord name, if that helps. So you can find me on that. I so don't use Discord that I don't even really know how to use Discord. You're on your own topic, Justin. I'm gonna create a Discord account again someday. What is the point of Discord? Never really quite figured out why it exists. Like, what does it do? Okay. So anyway, there was something else I wanted to talk about today. Oh, that was it. So just, you know how I'm always talking about, like, one of the things that I find frustrating with American politics is that everything becomes an our side, their side type thing. And I think most topics are just more complicated than that. Our side is right, your side is wrong. And I feel like we talk too much about sides and what, defending our side instead of addressing an actual topic. And so on Facebook, I've been seeing a lot of these ads for this group there's somebody wants to propose a law that changes how often companies have to report from quarterly to semi-annually. And so I started looking into that. And apparently both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are more or less agreed to some degree that this is a good idea. And I don't think there's going to find too many things where Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are on the same page. But there are a lot of people that disagree from, both sides of the aisle. So here's the situation. And I'm just explaining this a little bit from what I understand. I could be wrong about some of this, but I think it's more illustrative than it is, to actually examine this topic. That the reason they want to change this law and loosen up the frequency of how often people report is because the amount of stuff you have to report keeps getting longer and longer. Like, it becomes an encumbrance to business to actually even go public, because the cost of doing these reports becomes such a big deal. And having to do it quarterly just aggravates it and makes it worse. If you do it semi-annually, then what happens is you cut that cost in half, because you only have to do it half as often. A lot of the stuff that's in these reports is already publicly known. So it's not like you're losing all that ability. It just isn't official. But so the other side of it is, because companies aren't going public and they don't do the reports at all, and then you don't have any information on it. And so it's actually good to encourage companies to go public, But if you make it such an encumbrance, then they don't go public. So anyway, I just find that fascinating. Like there's this, and it's not a left-right thing. There's no clear partisan divide. There are people from both sides of the aisle that take both sides. And, so I was thinking, well, maybe they need to find a way to, make it conditional. But then there's, problems with that. And I feel like this is a great representation of a lot of our politics. Where what it should be, where we should be at is looking at the actual issues, looking at the pros and cons, looking at how we can make things better, instead of just being so absolute, so binary about everything. Is it the Democrat side or the Republican side? Is it the right or the left? Should just be, here is the issue. The issue is, how do we make it so that companies that are publicly shared are aren't so overregulated that they don't want to be publicly shared. On the other hand, how do you protect investors? Like, generally speaking, the one side of the argument, the people that want to do it more often or less often, are the people who run the businesses. And the people who want to do it less often are the ones who want to do it more often are the ones who invest in the business. The ones who want to do it less often are the ones who run the business. The ones who have to spend the money are the ones that want it 6 months. The ones who want to spend their money in the businesses are the ones that want it more often, because they want to know more about what's going on in the business before they invest their money. Does that make sense? So anyway, I just found that interesting. I find this an interesting topic, and I mean, I don't know where I stand on that. I feel like I just need to learn a lot more before I form an opinion. So okay, we lost our main commenters here. Brett and Harry are both got to go. Either I might. Well, it's also been 2.5 hours, so it's not just that I'm getting boring. But anyway, if anybody's left and wants to, the other people that are here, if anybody has any comments on that, go ahead. If not, I think I can just get going here. I'm actually about half an hour over where I wanted to go today, but I just think that's interesting. I wish we could talk more about actual problems and actual solutions instead of silly little things about whether or not you have to show your ID to go get NyQuil and whether or not that affects, non-citizens voting. It's like such silliness. MAGA has sillified our politics. A lot of it is MAGA and Donald Trump. I'm sorry to blame it all on them, but it's only because it's all their fault. Okay, so I think that actually makes a wrap for today. I hope you guys have a good evening, unless your name is Donald Trump. In which case, I hope you have a miserable evening. But I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for checking in.